Appropriations Committee to order. Adam, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Senators Huff.
Here.
Black. Here. Bean. Brown. Searpoy. Crawford. Here. Fitzwater. Here. Henderson. Here. Hudson. Here. May. Neuenburn. Here. Washington. Williams. Yes, you have a quorum, Senator.
We've got a quorum. A couple of real quick housekeeping items. One, appreciate those of you that have been serving on the conference committee on the budget and your work last night through into this morning. We're shooting for kicking that back up around 10:30. I've been working with our floor leader. He wants to go in. So what's pertinent for this committee right now is we've got a hard stop right at 10 o'clock. So I hope, where's Representative Hardwick? I hope we can do this in an hour. And then we'll be, like I said, on and off the floor hopefully fairly quickly, and then back in conference and ironing out the last handful of operating bills that we need to get through. So with that, Representative Hardwick, whenever you're ready, we will start the hearing on House Bill number 970. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Bill Hardwick. I represent House District 121, and I'm presenting House Bill 970. House Bill 970 establishes a regulatory and licensure framework for video lottery terminals. And the more I've been thinking about that, the more I think it's something necessary for our state to do. Over the last several years, and especially accelerated during COVID, you've seen different types of gaming devices pop up around the state. And they're different business owners, and they're different type of genres and mechanisms of machines. And I think what we owe as a legislature is something that's a reasonable framework to go forward as a state, that creates a legal beacon that says, here's what's clearly legal, here's what's clearly not, here's how you can operate, and gives those businesses certainty to be able to go proceed to get a license, to have cash flow for their business. And then as a state that we come with a responsible taxation and regulatory structure, that we're protecting people around the state from being exploited and vulnerable citizens, and that we're taxing it appropriately so that we could raise revenue for education and the way the fees in this bill are structured for veterans programs as well. So under this bill, a business can apply for a lottery license. The lottery would issue the license. They can go through the background check process. If they're awarded a license, then there'll be a system where there's kind of three splits. 34% of the revenue from those games will go to the state, 33% to an operator, 33% to a retailer. And there are some rules that we put in place about who can play the games. You have to be 21 years old. There has to be a separate, distinct space, which is compromised language we had with retail organizations who were thinking about construction costs and permit costs, but also what many of us and many of you have heard from your constituents, that they don't want to see gaming devices up by the front door, put in a back space. So there's some consumer protections in there. There's a structure that we know that people can be protected. There's a taxation structure that has potential to generate tremendous revenue for the state. And there's a path forward for businesses who are trying to operate in good faith. And they say, is this a no-chance game? Is this a gaming device, a slot machine? Is this a legal game? Is there a random number generator? We sort of absorb that uncertainty for the business owner and say, if it's licensed under this program, it's legal, you can operate if you follow these rules. And I think that's a reasonable framework. And the more I think about it, I think that's the way our state should go. It's not reasonable for us to try to undo the last 7 years, especially considering the different varieties of games. And it's not just one company. There's probably hundreds of companies. I think we owe it to our state to have a reasonable path forward. That's not the proliferation of gaming, but it's the reasonable regulation, licensure. And I also want to say that, everybody who's here in this room, there are people who I've tried to work with, people I've tried to say, is there a way that we can make this good for your business, for industry's point of view? And I've done that in good faith in the House, and I hope that we continue to have that conversation about what a place going forward that can make everybody successful and make our state successful looks like. And with that, I'll stop and ask any questions the committee may have.
All right, appreciate the testimony, Representative. Any questions from the committee? Oh, Senator Neuenburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning, Senator.
How are you?
Doing okay.
Great. Good to see you. Some questions for you. So obviously we are all here, I think, a lot of good conversations that we have been had in recent years about a regulated gaming system. Obviously we have one. We have our regulated casino industry today, obviously the lottery system, et cetera. What you are putting forward today is a proposal that would regulate the VLT market. One of the things that I'm concerned with as I read through the legislation is looking at what we are doing or not doing in this legislation that actually gets to the root cause of a lot of us being here in this room, I think, and that is getting rid of the unregulated gray machines. So talk to us a little bit about what is in your legislation that would actually get rid of the unregulated gray machines.
Well, first, let's establish the premise idea that we're not regulating VLTs because there are no video lottery terminals yet. We're establishing a lottery licensing program.
Okay.
So let's think about why people say that they're gray. The elements of gaming are you ante in with consideration or gambling. There's a game of chance, and then there's payable, valuable consideration. Come back. That's the definition of gambling in 572.
Okay.
So if I create a game that doesn't have the element of chance, there's not a game of chance, like maybe a claw machine without a random number generator, then arguably that technology goes beyond where the statute exists. So we have a clearly ambiguous problem. Now I have a problem of can I make that criminal something that's not a game of chance, say it doesn't have a random number generator? Can I make that criminal without criminalizing? If I change the definition of, so think about what I have to do. I have to change the definition of gambling to criminalize something that's not a game of chance. If I do that, do I criminalize a whole bunch of other things? And some people in this room say we should. Claw machines, random games that have an element of skill. So that's not a viable option for me either. So what we've done is there's an amendment of the House that says if there's payment into it, there's this alphanumerical thing, it presents cash or cash equivalent come out, then that's also a slot machine. That seems like it captures another universe of instances that regulate it. But if you think about what you want to do, if something's already illegal right now, let's say it's illegal right now.
Yep.
Why do I need to change the statute to make it illegal? And we should also think about the unintended consequences of making more different kinds of things illegal if we're targeting certain companies. So I think a better approach is to more clearly define what a slot machine is, which is what the House kind of did, and then say, here's another thing that's licensed and legal, and know that most businesses, and I think most businesses, will gravitate toward that licensed and legal market.
But can I cut you off here, obviously, because there's a lot of people that want to weigh in. And both of us can talk for a long time, so let me just cut to the chase here, right? But what are you doing to actually eliminate the illegal machines? I don't see anything in your bill that would actually do that. What you're doing is creating more or less like a three-tier system, right? We already talked about the regulated casino industry. Now here, you would be bringing on board then the VLTs, but still, we're still looking at these unregulated illegal machines that have, I think the proliferation of these are concerning to all of us, right? But I don't see anything in this legislation that would actually do anything to get to the root issue, that actual problem.
Well, we beef up gaming, their resources, authorities. The Bureau of Gaming Amendment was on there. They have more resources to act. We give sort of some certainty for prosecutors and Highway Patrol and gaming to do enforcement.
Okay, so through those administrative fees and all of these things, there's going to be some more money for enforcement, is what you're saying?
There'll be more enforcement, more clarity for enforcement, and we've sort of changed the definition of slot machine.
Okay.
So I think those are helpful.
Let me just walk through a few pieces of the bill. Obviously, I think others will probably weigh in on that. This passed out of the House with a resounding 83 votes. I think for the very reason that a lot of people are still concerned that we're not actually tackling those illegal machines. So let's walk through just a couple provisions here, how this would actually work. One of the things that you mentioned, I'm going to go to page, let's see what page this is. Kind of walking through the actual, I printed this off. We're like page 14. Yeah, page 14. Walking through some of the specifics. One of the things, Representative, that you mentioned in your opening comment is creating that distinct and divided space. But you actually said essentially a backspace. I don't see anything in the bill that says that it would be in a backspace or a back room.
That's a fair point. It doesn't say back room.
Okay.
So some people wanted a separate room.
Okay.
And then there were different businesses.
But you said distinct, so it says distinct and divided is the language that you landed on.
Right.
Okay, so distinct and divided if it's distinct and divided, is that separated by a supply of merchandise, for example?
So the way that compromise came about, so some people wanted a back room, and then some business owners, restaurateurs and bars said, well, we have trouble getting construction costs or a construction permit to build a back room for our space.
Okay.
So we realized that may have been a regulation and cost prohibitive for some businesses. So we said, okay, the Lottery Commission can do regulations for placement, and then maybe that instead of constructing a back room, maybe you build a divider, or you put up a curtain, maybe you put a partition, or maybe you make a room inside, or a room would work. But then the Lottery Commission will promulgate rules about what placement's functional. But that was a compromise because I didn't want it
So
to
you're
have.
leaving that up to the commission essentially to promulgate those rules about what constitutes distinct and divided. We're not going to just have somebody says, well, distinct and divided
Right.
is slapping down some, I don't know, like when I was a
Right.
kid and divided my room with my sister, some painter's tape in the middle of the floor.
That's right. It's still up to the Lottery Commission if it's satisfactory.
Okay.
But I didn't want to put in statute something that boxed out small businesses that couldn't afford that.
Okay, so you mentioned as well that we're sticking to 21 years of age to be able to partake in gaming. How is somebody carded?
Somebody carded. And they go up to the retailer and they show their driver's license. And
But
it's on-
obviously, a retailer has a lot going on at once, right? And these machines are just there. Is there? I mean, if somebody just starts playing a game, I don't know, a kid walks in and says, "Hey, this looks fun. Can I hop in and start doing this?" Or a kid that's 18, 20. How do we know that their age is actually going to be verified?
Well, there's stricter enforcement under this bill for age verification than there is for things like buying cigarettes or alcohol, because we have this camera. There's a camera system that the operator has that's watching the game itself, and then you got gaming and Lottery Commission. The Lottery Commission doing licensure and gaming doing criminal enforcement, and a video that's inspectable by the state. So there is a little bit of a burden for the retailer to check the driver's license, but that verification is stricter than other things that require age verification that
Okay,
are
and I-
regulated.
And I read through the video part, so we're going to have these videos for 30 days. I don't, help me if there's a lot that I've read recently. 30 days, I think, the videos, we keep track of this. Somebody's going to be going through and looking at these videos to enforce this, that say, hey, actually, your retailer is allowing minors to game, but we don't actually know how old that person is, right?
Just like any license or heavily regulated activity, the state has an administrative inspection viewpoint. But the 30 days was something that I added because I was actually concerned about, infinite amounts of storage of video of people going into gas stations and bars and stuff like that. So I try to say after 30 days it gets deleted. That was my addition.
Okay. Okay, I'll let others jump in on this. Thanks.
Thanks, Senator. Any other questions for the bill sponsor from the committee? Hearing none. Let's start, and I don't usually do this, but since we've got a packed house, could I get just a show of hands of how many folks are here to support Senate Bill 970? All right, that's not too bad. How many people are here to oppose Senate Bill 970? All right, this is doable. Fantastic. All right, let's take our first representative, let's take our first witness in support of House Bill 970.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Troy Strumming. I'm testifying on behalf of J&J Ventures Gaming in support of HB 970. J&J is a 95-year-old family-owned company that is a licensed operator of distributed operations in several states. And J&J only operates in states that have been regulated and where that state has elected to legalize video gaming. We do not operate in Missouri today. I'd like to start by just thanking Representative Hardwick for his leadership in advancing HB 970 out of the House. His proposal, as he stated, will put in place clear regulatory guardrails around VLTs, provide a path to legality for small businesses, and also provide consumer protections and underage gaming prevention. I have somewhat of a unique perspective on this subject matter, as I have been involved in the gaming industry in Missouri for over 25 years. These devices, similar to what we're talking about today, have operated in Missouri now for the last over a decade without any regulation or taxation. And the absence of clear regulation has really caused confusion among players, among small businesses, law enforcement, as well as just the general public. And judging by the number of these machines that are active in Missouri, I think it's clear that Missourians want video gaming entertainment, and I think that it's pretty obvious that they'd like it in locally or in some of their local establishments, whether that be at their local American Legion or a sports bar. However, it's equally clear that proper guardrails should be put in place to protect the public, and proper taxation should be in place to generate appropriate tax revenue for the state of Missouri. HB 970 provides this path forward, a path to legality and enforcement, a path for Missouri small businesses to grow, and a path to consumer protection as well as taxation. We have worked with many Missouri small businesses, veterans organizations, Missouri House members, and many others to develop the consensus that's set forth in HB 970 that allows Missouri small businesses to move forward and legally provide video lottery machines with a tight regulatory oversight. HB 970 also provides an appropriate tax structure that will generate in excess of $500 million per year in new tax revenue to support education, veterans, local communities, and also create thousands of jobs for Missouri residents. I'd also like to take just a moment to address the allegation of cannibalization of casino revenues. There is a clear distinction between destination gaming at a regional Missouri casino and convenience gaming at someone's local sports bar like we're talking about today. That's why those jurisdictions that have both casinos and distributed gaming have had year-over-year record profits for the past 4 years. Specifically, as it relates to Missouri, thousands of these devices are already in play, and casino slot revenues were up 4% in the first quarter of this year. So clearly, any potential impact to casino revenues is already baked into their business model. In closing, at the end of the day, if you do nothing and HB 970 dies in this committee, the number of these unregulated devices will continue to grow and operate in Missouri without consumer protections and without any tax benefit to Missouri. Oops. Page is stuck. The only logical path forward is to support Missouri small business by creating a path to legality, establish transparency by running the devices through a trusted division of state government, putting proper guardrails in place, protecting the public, and generating new tax revenue for the state of Missouri. We ask that you allow the path forward to continue by moving HB 970 out of this committee to the full Senate. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate the testimony. Any questions for the witness from the committee? Hearing none. Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
testimony. Could we get the first in opposition, and then we'll go back to proponents? That's our next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Mike Winter. I'm a registered lobbyist on behalf of the Missouri Gaming Association, which is the trade group representing the 13 licensed casinos in the state. Joining me is Mark Ellinger, a lawyer who represents my group in a number of legal matters, so I've asked him to participate as well today to shed some light on at least a couple of the key provisions in the bill. We've had a number of good conversations with Representative Hardwick, and he knows that we are adamantly opposed to the bill as it was introduced and as it was sent over here from the House. With all due respect, this is the largest expansion of gambling, which would not have gone to a vote of the people. When you read the bill, it limits the number of machines to 8 machines per lottery retailer. There are 4,200 approximate lottery retailers, so if you do the math, it's over 33,000 machines. If you compare that to what we currently have in Missouri's licensed casinos, we have less than 13,000. So you are tripling the number of video lottery terminals, slot machines that would be accessed around the state. We do not see this as any type of reduction in gambling machines that would be around the state. And I think a large percentage of the discussion on the House side really revolved around a couple of the issues in the bill, and I just want to touch on those real quickly. There was a lot of discussion about giving local communities the ability to opt in or out. There is language in the bill which does it, but it's permissive. So a video lottery terminal operator can petition the Lottery Commission for a license, and they would have no reason not to issue that license by virtue of the city or county not taking any action. They could affirmatively vote to keep them out, but if they take no action, they would be seeing probably a number of machines around their communities. The other piece that got a lot of discussion was Representative Murphy's amendment, which was supposedly to try to get at the illegal machines. But if you review the bill, and Mark can go into this in more detail, there is one reference that I can find to no chance games in the legislation, and that reference is to the effect that the lottery cannot deny a license as an operator or a retailer to someone who had no chance games in their facility. Mr. Strimming's right. You know, he's got a lot of experience in the gaming market. He's been around this as long as I have here in Missouri, and I've worked with Troy as well as now on the opposite side of him. The regulatory market from what they have proposed in this piece of legislation is staggeringly different from what licensed casinos are. Just for example, the fine structure. These are all tied to known violations that have to be reported by the retailer. So you're assuming that someone who is also dealing with other lottery products, selling gas, hot dogs, whatever it is going to know when there is a violation in a video lottery terminal, which may be 50 feet away from them, that's captured on some small part of their video surveillance along with 20 other cameras. So the surveillance and the monitoring is staggeringly different from what we have in casinos. There really is no mechanism, even though it's referenced in here, to monitor for underage gaming. I think you'll see kids continuing to play these machines as we do illegal machines regularly in convenience stores and gas stations. So I think we could go on, Mr. Chairman, but I know you're limited in time and want to move on, but happy to try to answer any questions after Mark is done.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 970 violates two provisions of the Missouri Constitution. Let's be very clear. Voters have twice spoken. They've amended the Constitution a long time ago to create the lottery, and they dedicated all the funds from the lottery to go to public education. They came back later and did another amendment to the Constitution to expressly say that any and all revenues from gambling shall go to public education and nowhere else. This measure diverts funds that should be going to education by sending it through various subterfuges outside of the education environment. For example, there is a revenue split. That means 66% of the revenue from these machines, 66% of the revenue from these machines will not go to education. Of the 34% that goes to the state, not all of that will even go to education. That in and of itself, both of those evidence a violation of the Constitution. There are direct revenues going to local governments. There is no provision under the lottery provision of the Constitution or any other provision of the Constitution to allow any of those revenues to go to local governments. They have to go to public education. There's also this structure of administrative fees. Now, administrative fees exist in the current lottery. They're capped at about 5% of total option. It's basically what the retailers are allowed to have as their cost of service for providing lottery tickets. In this case, the administrative fees are $1,000 a machine. It's not an administrative fee that's taxed by any way you would regulate it. But more disturbing, the money doesn't go for administration. It goes to veterans who don't have any role in administration. It goes to local governments, which don't have a role in administration. And on top of that, none of that revenue goes to education, which the Constitution specifically specifies it has to go to education. For those reasons, the entirety of the bill as it's written is unconstitutional, and it's my opinion that the courts would strike it down as such. I would like to talk a little bit about illegal gambling machines. I've had the ill fortune of being involved in a lot of litigation against those illegal gambling machines. House Bill 970 does nothing, absolutely nothing, to change the current state of affairs with those machines. They are illegal. One operator of those machines in Platte County has a felony conviction for operating the machines that now there are thousands of across the state, which will continue under House Bill 970. In March, federal district judge in St. Louis issued an order determining that the machines by one specific operator, who's very prevalent across the state, are illegal gambling devices under Missouri law. The concept of no chance is a fallacy. The argument, the inclusion of the term no chance is an attempt to negate a component, and the sponsor did indicate the three components of gambling, consideration, chance, and prize. But these machines operate on a basis of chance. Even the concept of pre-reveal is a falsity. You may know the next play, but you never know the play after that. That is, N, we call it N+1, in other words, the next spin. That is the definition of chance. The setup of those machines, the initial way the numbers are generated, are created by chance through a random number generator. So the reality is there is chance. The solution is prosecution of those machines, and this bill does nothing to create, mandate, or enforce prosecution of machines. The Gaming Bureau that's created is an investigatory authority. It's just adding more people who have no enforcement authority to it. There are some number of vague terms in there. I think one of the terms that was mentioned by the sponsor that I noticed in the bill is the term cash payout. I'm very unclear as to what that term is. It's not used anywhere in statutes. It's not used anywhere in regulations. Many of these machines, in fact, most of these machines no longer pay cash out. In fact, many of them have never paid cash out. They pay a ticket out, and a ticket is not cash. Or maybe a ticket is cash. We don't know. It's vague on that basis. Nobody has any idea. The net effect is the measure is illegal under the Missouri Constitution, and it does nothing to stop the scourge of illegal gambling in the state. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, appreciate the testimony. Any questions for either one of these witnesses?
Yes.
Oh, Senator May.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So what provision or what level of VLTs would you support in Missouri?
We won't support any, Senator May.
Okay.
We've tried to make that position clear for the last handful of years.
So you represent what, all the casinos in Missouri?
Yes.
Who are they?
There are 6 companies who own the 13 properties. I'm happy to.
Yeah, can you list them?
Boyd Gaming, Caesars, Penn National, Affinity, Century, and Bally's. And they all own between 1 and 3 properties, depending
Okay.
upon the company.
And so when I looked at the Securities Exchange Commission, I see that those same gaming entities are heavily vested in video gaming terminals in Illinois. I mean, just so far, 2025, $45 million brought in just this year. In 2020, they invested
I can't
in that.
answer specific questions
Right.
to one of the companies. I don't represent the companies individually.
Well, you know, I'm just saying it amazes me how the same gaming companies, the casinos here, all of them are invested in making billions in VLTs in other states, but they don't want them in Missouri.
I would tell you that the market is different from state to state, and I'm not surprised that there could be companies that own VLT routes in other states. They've seen that as the
No,
the
I'm talking about
business they need to get
Missouri
into.
casino companies.
That's right, and those companies are unanimous in their opposition to House Bill 970.
It amazes me. Don't you think that's hypocritical, though?
No?
That they don't want them in Missouri, but they invest in them and making millions in other states.
We have never flipped positions on this, Senator. As long as I've been involved in this issue, they've always been very consistent in what their feelings are on.
I know, but
On
that's
these.
not what I'm asking. You're saying their feelings are they're against them, but at the same time they're making billions over here, but they're against them here.
Well, and you may have some of these VLT companies or VGT companies in other states that represent casinos or have casinos in their portfolio as well. I don't know that, but it's potential. So that could be the same argument you could make to them.
Okay. And so your question, your thing said, you said it was the largest expansion of gambling. I beg to differ. I think sports betting is the largest expansion of gambling in the state. Yeah, because every kid that got a cell phone in his hand can sports bet.
My
All day
comment
long.
is specific to slot machines, Senator.
Okay.
And Senator, I would add to that all of those expansions you're talking about, including the sports betting expansion, were voter-approved constitutional amendments.
No, and I think this will be too. But, you know, thank you. And what I'll do is I'll provide the Security Exchange Commissions on all the casinos in Missouri to the committee so they'll see how much money they made on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions for either one of these witnesses before we let them loose? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Appreciate the testimony. Next witness in support.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Committee. My name is Josh Grant. I am actually a small business operator in Missouri, so I represent myself. My wife was hoping to be here today, but unfortunately my son developed an illness last night, so my partner in crime has left this on to me. But my wife and I, we operate a few convenience stores in southeast Missouri, along with a 14-year-old daughter and 6-year-old son. I don't have a script today, but I think some of the questions have actually given me some kind of riff opportunities, so I just want to touch base on a couple key things that maybe I can at least bring perspective to. First and foremost, I am for this. I think it is a benefit to our industry and our state, and I also think the benefit of regulating it does allow an avenue to eliminate some of these, gray areas with the viability of the current machines. So I'm going to try to touch on maybe some of the questions that were already asked and give my perspective on it. As far as the regulation side of it goes, our whole industry is regulated on a day-to-day operation. So when my team goes to work every day, and I run 24-hour businesses, whether I'm selling groceries, fuel, lottery, alcohol, my business is at risk at any time. It could be at risk of an injury, an underage sale, me not complying with certain regulations that I already have. So it is one of my foremost priorities to make sure that every execution and every transaction that happens in the door or in my business is done effectively. I don't see where regulating this category would alter any of those efforts. So to the question about eliminating the gray machines that are out there now, with no regulations, there's no repercussion and there's really no threat, in my opinion. So when they are regulated, I feel like you're going to have more people like me who run an honest business, who run a thorough follow the regulation guidelines, and you're going to have the biggest players in the industry that will invest into these regulations, which I think by default will weed out the incentive to operate unregulated. The other concern I have with that is by not moving something forward is going to be a victory to the unregulated market, because at this point in time, at least my perception, is this has received probably the most awareness and traction. And if the market stays unregulated, then what's to keep people from seeing that as a victory and flooding the market with even more unregulated machines? So to your question, Senator, I think just by default, by creating a category that creates a bulk of honest operators, you weed out, maybe organically weed out the activity that's happening now. So from an administrative and an enforcement standpoint, you're not going after thousands of operators, you're going towards maybe tens, if not, maybe hundreds. It's somewhere in a much smaller capacity, much more manageable capacity. The other thing I wanted to touch base on with Senator May's point to the casino side of things, there's no doubt if this becomes regulated that there's going to be a vast participation for more companies in this, in the cash flow and the income of this. But me being actively involved in this topic, and this is a hypothetical, my phone through social media is constantly flooded with digital slot advertisements. I get them from Ameristar Casino, I get them from Hollywood Casino, and in my opinion, that is the least able to enforce any type of restrictions. When I'm going to leave this room, if I was to get on Facebook, in between all of my friends' posts is going to be a gambling advertisement because I'm saying it out loud. To your point on the sports betting, how do you keep a 10-year-old kid from getting on their parent's cell phone or their cell phone in doing that? So I think that's a very important thing to address. So the way I see it is we have a category that's within our power to hopefully tighten up. And whatever the benefits are to the operators, to the business owners, to the state, I think will come as those things are identified and executed. So I don't want to be repetitive and talk on what all the benefits of them are, but I want to give a perspective of the guy at the front line, which is me. So if you all have any question, I respond better if I'm asked a question and I can give some insight.
All right,
in that
appreciate the
regard.
testimony. Any questions from the committee? Senator Washington.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for coming up from the southeastern part of the state. Just a
course.
couple of questions. Do you
Yes.
have any VLTs right now in any of your stores? How many stores do you have?
So we have 2 stores we operate in the St. Francis County and in Perry County.
Okay. Now, what would be the advantage of you having the, so if this passes, are you going to go get some?
Yes, because we currently are successful with multiple regulated categories within our business that I think have gone through similar processes.
What are those?
Missouri Lottery, alcohol and tobacco, even fuel. I mean, fuel's probably is our number one driving source to our businesses, and we are under vast regulations with those to make sure that our products are executed properly and safely. We undergo from the major oil companies monthly inspections, not only on their fuel products but also on their.
Okay. Let me
Go ahead.
Let me move ahead.
Yep.
Have you done studies or had like any economic indicators of how much you'd be able to make off of this? And if so, how did you come to that number?
So I am fortunate to have relations with operators on the Illinois side, and from the business side, per square foot in their establishments, there's nothing that makes more money per footprint. But then to see the growth in Illinois, the job opportunities it's created.
I'm glad you talked about that. How many extra people you gonna hire?
Given the opportunity and what I would project based on, so I currently employ 25 people.
Are you open 24 hours?
We are open 24 hours. Me personally, regardless of the literature in the bill, I do see it advantageous to create a section of the property or the business
Okay, I don't want to rush you,
to manage it.
but we don't have a lot of
No,
time.
no, you're
so
good.
if
I
we
just-
can have some brevity in our responses.
Okay.
So, just a number. How many extra folks would you hire if you
If they were
invested in this?
if it was to support what I would forecast, I would say I would probably increase my staffing by at least 5+. Now, mind you, that's
Okay.
I currently employ 25, so adding 5 employees on the basis of
I
these
understand.
machines is a significant number.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the witness from the committee? Hearing none. Appreciate your testimony.
No.
Next witness in
Thank you.
opposition.
Thanks, Bill. Now I just got to figure out how to get out.
Good morning. My name is Joe Bednar. I am an attorney with Spencer Fain. It's a law firm here in Missouri and several other locations in the country. But I've been here in Jefferson City for over 30 years. My background is I was a prosecutor, chief assistant prosecutor in Jackson County, Missouri, Kansas City. And I was also chief counsel to the governor for 7 years at the infancy of the Gaming Commission. And so I was involved at that time, obviously, in the development of that commission, the rules and regulations, and I'm here to provide some history because I think the representatives brought some very good ideas, but I think they're kind of answered. Pardon? Oh, Joe Bednar? No. In the context of this, the good thing today is we've defined it as gaming, and back in the 90s, this same discussion was going on about the gaming industry. And it took a coalition of local communities, the community of faith, and the religious opposition to gaming, the casino industry, and then, of course, the public servants, you all elected representatives. And that was a very, very deliberate process, which required lots of discussion and lots of deliberation and lots of compromise by everybody. What it resulted in is probably the model gaming commission in the United States, the Missouri Gaming Commission. It's the most feared commission from the underground market or those who would violate the rules. I've represented casinos, I've represented suppliers, and so the process that you go through to get a machine licensed in Missouri, it's about 7 pages in the Missouri Gaming Commission rules. The background checks for these companies and the operators, I was hired just to attend background checks with nominees to boards of directors that had at one time taken 8 hours a day. They open up juvenile records. They look at your tax returns. Those are the type of safeguards that have been put in place by the current Missouri Gaming Commission. So it seems as though we're actually duplicating a process and a mechanism that's already there. And so we're expanding government where it doesn't need to be expanded. This is an enforcement issue. It's not a rule and regulation issue. The rules and regulations are there. The structure is there. And this is a great committee to look at the appropriations for the Gaming Commission and the number of high patrolmen that are paid for that enforcement, for background checks. Every casino has to have high patrolmen on duty. If they let somebody in under 21 into a casino, that fine can be over $20,000 for that one violation. So we're talking about serious enforcement that these casinos have to pay. That's the regulatory process here that differs from Illinois. And I think we have a constitutional process. As has previously been testified, it requires a vote of the people. Every gaming issue has gone to a vote of the people. Lottery Commission, vote of the people. Horse racing, vote of the people. Sports betting, vote of the people. And so my question really is to the proponents is what is trying to be avoided here by those who would expand? What don't they like that the Missouri Gaming Commission is doing? What enforcement mechanism don't they like? Because the enforcement's there. Eric Zahn, county prosecutor in Platte County, took care of illegal gaming machines. He prosecuted it. They destroyed it in the parking lot of the courthouse after that company was convicted. We don't have VLTs, we don't have gray machines in Platte County because the record is clear. The prosecutor was back, the sheriff was back, and that's really what we're talking about here. I'm all for funding prosecutors and sheriffs, creating task force against illegal slot machines. They're not VLTs. They're illegal slot machines is what they are. We know they're gaming machines. That's been admitted to this morning. So we have a structure for gaming. Let's follow it. If we need more money for law enforcement, for local prosecutors, local sheriffs, let's do that. Let's allow them to figure out how best to solve their problems. And I know that because I've gone out and talked to the communities. And that's what the sheriffs have told me. They don't have the money. They lack resources. Prosecutors tell me we need experts. And so we can fund the Gaming Commission to provide extra experts to determine, is this an illegal slot machine or not? That's the simplest thing. You know, if you have a machine you don't think is illegal, take it to the Gaming Commission. Have their guys certify it, inspect and certify it. That's what I had to do for my clients. We had to take each individual game to the Gaming Commission, and those examiners at the Gaming Commission had to then inspect that game and determine whether or not it complied with all the rules and regulations of the Missouri Gaming Commission. So we have the system in place, Representative. I think it's an excellent system. It is everybody that's adopted gaming after Missouri has tried to mirror themselves after the Missouri Gaming Commission. So I don't think we need to expand government anymore. And I think we're caught up in the conversation back in the old days. We used to say, what's the definition of is? Or we had to destroy the village to save it. This is a name game, and we already have a system. Well done. And
Appreciate the testimony.
Yep.
Any questions from the committee? Senator May?
Yeah. Good morning. So who do you represent?
City of Riverside.
City of Riverside. So that's a
That's
casino.
in Kansas City area, right on the Missouri River there. They have a casino there, Argosy Casino, part of Penn Gaming.
Okay.
And
Penn.
Penn, that's
yeah,
right. They voted. Their community voted. Went back in the 90s. We were the first community to vote to take the risk on having a casino in our community. All the communities in Missouri got to
Okay.
vote on it. Jefferson City voted twice.
Yeah.
They-
Well, you
to
know,
have it, then not to have it.
Penn, that casino,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't represent them.
They made billions in 2020
I'm sure
in
they did.
VLTs.
I don't know. I don't represent them, ma'am.
All right.
Senator, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm not.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks. Any other questions from the committee for this witness? Hearing none. Appreciate the testimony.
Thank you, Senator.
Next witness in support.
Good morning. I'm Tim Lowry. I'm the mayor of the city of Florissant, largest municipality in St. Louis County. With me is my police chief. And, I've been in public service for 40 years. I spent 34 years in law enforcement prior to becoming the mayor of the city of Florissant. And I was the past president of the Missouri Police Chiefs Association. And when these machines started showing up 7+ years ago in our city, they definitely were unregulated machines. I'm talking about the illegal machines. And, I'm not necessarily was against the machines. It's just that I was against the fact that I felt that like they were illegal. I could never get any support. The Gaming Commission wouldn't support me. My prosecuting attorney did not want to touch these machines. So they continued to grow in all of my local establishments, my bars, my stores, and things like that. And what I was not getting any traction with the illegal machines, and I've always said is, let's just regulate these machines, tax them like we do with the casinos. And I can never get any traction with anybody on this. So at some point, as a police chief, I would not allow those in my stores and my bars any longer, and I had them all take them out. With no support from anywhere else, with the gaming commissioner or the prosecutor, I just took them out. Several months later, all of my store owners, my bar owners came to me and said, "Chief, we need to talk, because the problem is that everybody around us has these, and the city of Florissant does not allow these machines, and what it is doing is it's hurting us as small business owners." So at that point, I allowed them to start bringing them machines back in. And over the last 7 or 8 years, we watched how many have grown and how many machines we have, and they're just all over the place. So I've been fighting for a long time to say, let's get these regulated, let's get these licensed, and let's tax them. That's why I'm in support of this BLT bill. I feel like it does exactly what I've asked it to do. I know that the senator brought up, what would I do, what would happen with the illegal machines? I would encourage my city council right away to pass an ordinance banning all of those machines from our establishments and only allow these machines in because these are licensed and regulated. And so that's where I support the VLT law, and I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate you, Representative, bringing that forward, because this is something I've been fighting for years, and it really has been a very frustrating fight. And if you have any questions of me or my chief, I'm more than happy to answer.
Well, does your chief, who yet has to be named, does he have any comments?
Oh, I'm sorry, Chief Fagan, I'm sorry.
And I'll take this real quick. Make sure everyone who's testified grabs a witness form, fills it out, and leaves it for our record. Chief?
Good morning. Tim Fagan. I am the police chief of the city of Florissant, as the mayor said. I think from the law enforcement perspective, the lack of ability for us to do anything in the way of prosecution of illegal machines is very difficult. As the mayor said, we have not gotten any traction with the prosecuting attorney's office, with the gaming commission. We've worked with the highway patrol in an effort to try and address these, and that was not possible. And so from a law enforcement perspective, my biggest concerns are unregulated. In other words, there's no way to know whether these machines are set up to pay anyone or whether they're simply there to collect money. There's nothing there to regulate the fairness of the machines. And certainly the minors playing the machines is a very difficult situation for us. Currently, there's no rules, and so it's a free-for-all. You can see a 10-year-old sitting there if mom or dad gives them the money to play it and play the video machines. Lack of surveillance. Just the overall safety and security of the machines, and the safety and the security of the folks that are playing them and their finances are our big concerns.
Appreciate the comments. Any questions from the committee? Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Mayor.
Good to see you, Senator.
So I didn't accidentally call you Chief.
Tell me, Chief, yeah.
We've been friends a long time. Clearly, you served as police chief in one of the cities within my senatorial district, and Chief, it's good to see you. I don't accidentally call you Mayor.
No, you don't.
But I am curious to know, you serve in leadership capacities with the Municipal League. You work with mayors throughout the region. What are you hearing among all of those mayors in terms of illegal machines, and how do you believe it would help just even neighboring communities if this was to go forward?
So the majority of us are obviously fighting the same fight, that really what we want to see is most are in favor of the machines. They just they just don't like the illegal machines, and they want them regulated. They want them taxed. They want them treated like all other machines in the casinos. The separate areas for the gaming is very important. making sure that the people who are of age are gaming. The surveillance was a big issue. So I think that the majority of the people, I'm also currently the president of St. Louis County Municipal League, and so I think the majority of the mayors and city councils that I deal with are definitely in favor of this bill.
Thank you, Chief, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Any other questions from the committee? Oh, Senator Bean.
Just a quick comment. I know, gentlemen, you said you're Southeast Missouri. I'm from truly Southeast Missouri in the Boot Heel, but the comments that you all have said, I hear that literally. You okay over there? All right. I literally hear those comments. What you just said, literally every day, from law enforcement, even our prosecutors who just say, and I go in stores all the time. I mean, there's 7-year-old kids playing these machines. So appreciate your comments. So.
Thank you very much.
I've just got one real quick question. I think I guess maybe slightly a comment, but the interesting thing to me is that we're acting like there's not a framework to prosecute these illegal machines, when the previous witness just said in Platte County we don't have them, because the Platte County prosecutor got involved and then I think subsequently smashed him with like a wrecking ball or something in his parking lot after the judgment. So I take a little bit of an issue with communities, and I represent Springfield. Springfield, I think, right now is still the only municipality who has enacted a citywide ordinance and is now, I believe, locked up in a court fight in Cole County with our good friend Chuck Hatfield trying to adjudicate that. So we'll see where that goes. But it seems to me like at least some communities, and there's our hard stop, but it seems like some communities have found a way to prosecute these and get them out of their communities. So I take just a little bit of an issue with the idea that the framework doesn't exist. The second comment I'd make is I find it a little bit interesting as a 34 member of the law enforcement community that this instance was brought to your attention after taking the position that we don't want these in Florissant, right? Subsequently having a meeting with a number of retailers, right? You said all, probably not all, but a lot, maybe some number of retailers who wanted them back in. I almost see this analogous to some other illegal activity occurring in a neighboring community, a community allegedly reaping some sort of benefit from something that is either unregulated or illegal, and then a community next door saying, well, if they're doing it, we had previously taken the position that we didn't want this in our community. However, now we believe, because of the economic impact or whatever, that we're going to allow this in our community. I find that, and I don't mean to be argumentative,
Okay.
but I find that a little bit interesting from a member of the law enforcement community to say, now I think it'll be okay because I want my businesses to make money too. If you were against it in the beginning, it seems like you would be against it in the end, whether it was economically beneficial to some number of retailers or not. But
Can I address?
please.
Yes, please. Thank you, Senator. So honestly, my frustration became is that I was getting no assistance with the Gaming Commission, the Highway Patrol, my prosecutor's office. So in reality is that I was hurting my own businesses. I was not happy about it.
But you take ownership of that instead of the prosecutor or the Gaming Commission or the Highway Patrol. You take, and I think if I'm following your timeline right, it was when you were the mayor, right?
No, it started when I was police chief.
Okay. When was the decision made that we're just going to go ahead and turn a blind eye to these things in our community?
Turn them off?
No, a blind eye, saying, retailers, if you want to put them in, fine with me.
It was probably about 9 months after I had them take them out.
But were you the mayor or were you the police chief?
Police chief.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, if I could get prosecution, if I could have got what I believe that they were illegal, I promise you they never would have went back.
Do you see this from my perspective just a little bit?
I see a little bit, but I think that you got to understand my frustration that I was going through at the time with.
I'm frustrated that on a straight highway in Kansas I can't drive 105 miles an hour.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Some people do. I don't.
Mm-hmm. But
But just because they do, it doesn't mean that everybody else can.
But here's the thing: is
But if the police chief of Salina, Kansas said, you know what, I think we're going to let everybody drive 105 and we're not going to prosecute anybody, nobody's going to write any tickets,
so
then I guess I'd drive 105.
I was not getting that same opinion from others.
Right.
So who's right and who's wrong?
Right.
I mean, that was what I was dealing with at the time. So am I wrong for allowing when I can't get any support when I believe that they were illegal, but I was not getting that support from the people that would have to prosecute those cases?
Yeah, and I
and
get-
serving my own community, I don't have a problem with it. I don't even agree with the analogy of driving 105 miles down the road. I don't think that's the same thing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other questions for the witnesses? Hearing none. Appreciate it. Do we have any more witnesses in opposition? Yes. Let's try to make it quick at this point. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Kathy Harness, and I'm here today on behalf of the Missouri Amusement Machine Operators Association, and we are in opposition to this bill until we address the illegal machines, and they are illegal machines, until they are addressed and removed from the market. I would not support this VLT legislation. And I also would wonder if we are going to continue to allow the illegals to remain in the market alongside the VLT, why would some of these, say, smaller convenience stores and places spend the money to get licensed and do all of this when they can just continue to run the illegals?
Appreciate your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Hearing none. Any other witnesses in support?
Do you mind if I testify for information purposes?
After we're done with the support and opposition, we'll try to do that real quick.
Support, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. My name is Ken Goins. I am general counsel for Motormart. We have about 19 stores here in Missouri, and I'm here testifying in favor of House Bill 970. Thank you for your efforts, and thank you all for listening. I think in terms of hearing the comments, I think we have to understand that there are between 30 and 50,000 games that are here. And while I understand your point in terms of enforcement, the problem is they're here and they're not going anyplace. So, I mean, I've been involved in this for 3 years, and enforcement's just not there. So, from our position, we don't have them in our stores because we're corporate, and we feel like if there's a question of whether they're legal or illegal, we won't do them, and we don't do them. But we're at an economic disadvantage because everyone around us is doing it. And that hasn't been addressed in 5-7 years. So at this point, I mean, it's the only option. You know, I mean, and there is a legal question as to whether these games are legal or illegal. And with that question, then enforcement does become problematic. So this does answer. It addresses the public safety aspect of it, and it also addresses the unfair business practices because we don't do it because we feel like if there's a gray area, we won't get in that area, and we haven't. But we are at an economic disadvantage.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Hearing none. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair of the committee, my name is Scott Poole. I'm a private attorney here in Jefferson City. I'm past Assistant Attorney General, past law clerk to Chief Justice Charles Blackmar, successfully defended the Highway Patrol and the Department of Public Safety in litigation brought by Torch Electronics. I was asked by J&J Ventures to render an opinion with regard to whether this House Bill 970 is constitutional or not. I independently reviewed the legislation, the perfected legislation. The framework is absolutely constitutional. The Constitution states that the monies received by lottery shall be governed by appropriation. That language has to be given meaning and effect. With all due respect to Mr. Ellinger, his interpretation gives no meaning and effect to that language. If his interpretation was correct, there would not be the need for two funds, a lottery fund and a lottery proceed fund, as the Constitution is currently framed. The monies need to go into the lottery fund. Those monies are governed by appropriations. First and foremost, you are free to appropriate how you deem fit. After that appropriation is done, after the payment of prizes, after the payment of administrative fees, then that money gets appropriated to the proceeds fund, which has to be distributed to education. The framework is constitutional. There are some slight modifications to the bill that should be done, but otherwise it satisfies Missouri law. Any questions? I'd be happy to.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Senator Washington.
Real quick, can you repeat your name and who you're here representing?
My name is Scott Poole, P-O-O-L, and I was asked to provide an independent legal opinion on behalf of J&J Ventures.
So are you for or against this?
For the constitutionality of the bill.
Thank you.
Any other questions for this witness? Hearing none. Appreciate the testimony. Any other witnesses in opposition? Any other witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Ron Leone. I'm the Executive Director for the Missouri Petroleum and Convenience Association. We are here in support of House Bill 970. I want to thank the sponsor for introducing the bill. I hear the bells ringing, Mr. Chairman. We just want you to know that we support it because we think we support House Bill 970 and legislation similar to that because it authorizes and reasonably regulates VLT. It leaves many of the details up to the free market, which is appropriate because we have the opportunity and the expertise to actually implement the bill, and it really doesn't pick winners and losers. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate the testimony and the brevity. Any questions for this witness? Hearing none. Appreciate the testimony. Any other witnesses in support of House Bill number 970? Hearing none. We do have at least one witness for informational purposes only.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. My name is Troy. Good morning. My name is Troy Williams. I am MAVO, the Missouri Association of Veterans Organizations Chairman, and a member of the VFW Legislative Committee. The purpose of the Missouri Association of Veterans Organization is for its members to assemble, exchange ideas for collective welfare of all veterans residing in the state of Missouri, assist Missouri Veterans Commission, and advise the Governor and General Assembly on matters of interest. Membership in MAVO shall be open to any statewide veterans organization operating in support of Missouri veterans, their families, and survivors. Thank you for the opportunity to testify for informational purposes on behalf of Missouri veterans regarding House Bill 970 and the provisions that impact veterans. I want to begin by expressing our appreciation for being engaged early in this process. We were approached early by the stakeholders here today who support this bill to understand how this would impact Missouri veterans and veterans halls. We are encouraged by the collaborative efforts to develop legislation that truly benefits Missouri veterans. When this bill was in the House, lawmakers added a provision to increase the entry fee to riverboats by $2. Similar provisions have been proposed in the years past and never moved. That change alone is estimated to generate $50 million annually for the Missouri Veterans Commission, a major step forward for veterans in the state. For years, MAVO and veterans organizations have sounded the alarm about persistent funding shortages at MVC that have threatened its ability to take care of the veterans' homes and cemeteries. While this year, the governor made a recommendation to include funding in the general operating fund to temporarily fill that gap, we know this is a sustainable solution. In addition, House Bill 970 will generate another $10 to $15 million in dedicated revenue through MVC through licensing fee and video lottery terminals. These are stable, reliable sources of funding that do not rely on general revenue. Some Missouri veteran halls operate some form of gray machines today. This legislation would create a consistent and legal framework where everyone is playing by the same rules, and that is much better for the long-term sustainability of these local posts. Looking ahead, we will continue to have important discussions with the stakeholders at our MAVO meetings and VFW and Legion meetings across the state. In closing, I want to express our gratitude for the thoughtful consideration of our concerns and for the efforts being made to address them. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Hearing none. Sir, we're pretty familiar with the GR shore-ups and the veterans lines around here. You're sitting in front of the Appropriations Committee. I think that my director and I were arguing back and forth whether we put $30 or $40 million in that fund last year to shore it up, and I appreciate the administration's willingness to do it also, but you've got a bunch of friends here too. So appreciate your testimony. With that, Representative, any closing comments? Oh, one more information.
Yes, sorry.
Fantastic.
Pat Kelly, Municipal League Metro St. Louis, just we're going on record. Municipalities really need a framework for enforcing regulations on these illegal gambling machines, and we'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope we continue the discussion.
All right, appreciate it. That will conclude the hearing on House Bill 970, and that will conclude the hearing on your Senate Appropriations Committee. Thanks, guys.